together as I'd like. I'd love to just soak in your brain with all of this, international knowledge that you have gained. So I'd love to kick this off by you sharing your story, how you found EXP, and I know it's been a crazy
It
ride
has, and
since.
I reciprocate 100%. Hopefully in Miami, maybe, because we're only a few hours away geographically where we are, so
Yeah.
hopefully in person too. So listen, I mean, the long and short of it, without going back to when I was born, I moved to America in 2010. I got into real estate 2015, 16. I joined EXP coming up to 6 years ago in the summer, just because of divine intervention and luck. And I joined EXP, I tell everybody in transparency, to build my own brand, not somebody else's, to be a better agent and to have support in the back end. Just so turned out, as we're speaking, and I get the honor of speaking with you live now, I learned about revenue share. I didn't know anyone international, however, and I call myself, not egotistically, but just if you look at the top, 50 agents globally from the EXP announcement last week, the #1 global agent. I have an organization that doesn't, break any barriers. It's about 630 agents. It's in 6 continents, expanded to 16 countries, and it has been an absolute whirlwind and joy.
That's amazing. In 6 years. That's great. Six is your number right now. 16 or 26, you said, or 16? 16 countries,
16
six
countries, coming close
continents.
to my 6-year old man anniversary, and 6 continents. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. Tell me how the first happenstance happened with Agent Attraction internationally for you.
Really ignorantly. I mean, super ignorantly. Now, I may not be the most compliant person in the world, so always follow the rules, look at the agent attraction guidelines, and do all of that. Now, when I joined EXP, I was a single agent. I was a capping agent, okay? Not a team leader, not anywhere near the level of production you are, and probably many others on the call. I couldn't afford to go. I shouldn't have afforded to go to the first EXP convention. I've never been a real estate convention or convention person. It was in New Orleans. My business partner and sponsor said, "Hey, you got to go here. The company wants to grow international." And the reason that I actually randomly had a meeting with my sponsor with no interest in joining EXP, going one step back, I found out, so licensing in the UK, obviously that's where I'm from. I didn't know anybody in the industry in the UK. Licensing's not a thing. I read something 6 years ago, because it was before I joined, that they were bringing in licensing. And I said, hey, I don't know this whole EXP thing. I'm not sure what you're doing. I know something about growth. I don't get it. Maybe of interest to you. Him and I sat down, explained where I was, looking at the numbers, black and white. And that's why I joined. But I told you, I didn't join to recruit or grow. I was a single agent and wanted to grow my own brand. Long and short of it then, that goes into New Orleans, where, 2017,
I was
probably.
there. Yeah, that was a great conference.
It was amazing. Yeah, I was the one who, again, financially shouldn't have gone. I stayed at the furthest hotel I could that I could walk, that wasn't at the convention, to meet one guy. His name was Jason Guessing. He was, I guess, the VP of the company at the time. Incredible human being. New Orleans jazz band in the background said, "Hi, Jason. I know you guys are saying about growing internationally. My name's Barry Pulver out of the Charlotte area. I'm going to be the one who helps you do it." So that was the reason I went to the convention. I knew nobody internationally, even with this accent and all my family there. Long story short, from there, I did my research. I did my research on LinkedIn because that's the platform I was already heavy on. I don't advocate going on a new platform. I was on there. I found a guy in particular. I sent a very calculated, specific, cold message to the guy who just so happened to be called Adam Day. Many, 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 many conversations later, before the whole global infrastructure, all that came into place, we launched EXP outside of North America. First place is the UK, and the rest is kind of history. So that's kind of a many-hour overview of how it happened.
Crazy. That is so crazy. What do you remember what your message was, or something to the
The
effect?
gist of it, yes. The very gist of it, absolutely. So the concept is human psychology. Again, we're sales people on this call, so sales is sales. What I did was I looked at how he advertised himself and what he felt of himself. So I believe he is, and he has the history behind it, but he was a disruptor in real estate. I also realized, ironically enough, he lived in the same county in England that I lived in almost most of my life. Yeah, I had no idea who he was, and I should have. I just wasn't a property person back then. So I sent a message touching on the main points. Hey, I see you're from here, it's where I'm from. Hey, I see this is who you are. it's probably not going to be of interest, but this is we as a company, what we do. So just trying to meet in the middle to, as
Yep.
we talk about following the revenue share process. Now I can speak 6 years in, three-way Zoom calls, edifying your sponsor, all of that. I kind of touched upon that in a cold message. To be fair, there's no reason why he should have ever responded to me. Who am I? Who am I now? But who am I then, especially? So divine intervention from his timing, which obviously we can only control our actions and our timing, and that timing opened the door, and the rest is history.
It's amazing. Now, was he a team or did he have his own brokerage?
So again, completely, I know we speak a similar language, but it's completely different. So he was responsible. He's been in the industry since 1997. You mean now or you mean then?
Then,
Perfect, thank you. So he was the first episode. Again, how real estate used to be done here, probably in the 70s and 80s, is how real estate is done in the UK or estate agency. So he's created the first ever online estate agency in the country, probably in Europe, maybe even the world, and sold it to the largest brand, if you will. So he was in a phase there of doing some consulting. This is where I talk about timing, where I didn't know. He was consulting for big businesses around Europe. Already, actually, behind the scenes, had his own branding and logo for starting his own agency. So he had made the money, done all the hard yards long before Glenn came up with his vision, because they're very similar.
yeah,
He was just in the phase of consulting and actually going out and starting it all by himself again.
that is perfect. You're right. Divine intervention on the timing for sure with that. So tell me, how then did you go from uh, the UK outside of there? Was it a connection within the UK that then led to things starting to expand?
That's a really good question. No. Now, he, as we all do, the beauty, if you're Glenn Sanford, if you're Barry Paul, if you're Meg Watson, we all have our own revenue share
Right.
organization. So he has an international one. But no, I think proof of concept a little bit, giving me the confidence and ignorance, because again, who am I? Why would anyone pick up the phone to me then? To do the same and to almost go, not headhunting, but to build genuine relationships. We're in a genuine relationship industry
Right.
with people in select markets and select places. And that gave me the confidence to do that. Because I, as an agent, I never, ever wanted to, even if I cold called someone, I almost didn't want them to pick up the phone. It was just the lack of thick skin for whatever reason I had. But having
Right.
that proof of concept and success, then I kind of look specifically. I'm like, well, what are things in Australia? What's a good region in Australia? Who's a good person? As you know, you hear many no's before you hear a yes, but with the right person, the right timing, that opens up, and that expanded to Spain and France. And so it's a combination.
Yeah.
But at that point, I've been there, done it once, and now we have an infrastructure, which actually, if you're looking at international growth, it makes it easier. But being that we had nothing, we're just kind of laying down the train track, and the train's already gone down the station.
Yeah.
So it's a combination, but a lot of it's been me. But certainly a lot of it's been him. And then, Meg, the great thing about this industry from a selling perspective or from a growth perspective, you never know who knows someone.
Yes.
And that has opened up some incredible doors
Yes,
too.
for sure. I think one of the things that stands out from your story that I love, and we're similar in this way, is we didn't have all the answers, right? You did not, you definitely did not have all the answers. I at least had, I was about 7 years, coming up on 7 years ago. And, we were, like you said, the track was being laid one at a time as we were going. It's like, okay, well, what do you do in this situation? Well, let's figure it out. Same thing with you internationally. You did not have all the answers. And I think that's a huge message to anyone that is listening to this entire course. You won't have the answers. And it's okay. You have a support team, like you said, the three-way calls, the verification from others. And we've talked a lot about that in this series, how it's okay not to have the answers, just be the connector. And that's exactly what you were with Adam, and it's gone, from there on and on and on. So I love that about you, that you were like, yeah, I'm not going to have every answer, but I'm going to start making those connections and find them out.
Thank you. And I was still, again, I don't know why. I wasn't scared because, there's a level of, I don't want to use the word intimidation, because it's not. But if you're going to compare someone's resume, right, one to one, I'd much rather be told no from someone. I would rather be in their position than, and I just get told no all the time still.
Yeah.
But I'm also at the point of this business, which I never thought I would say from a recruiting standpoint, where I get referrals on recruits, which blows my mind still. But it's massive, and I take a lot of a lot of education I take now, we all have, you know, Craig and Shelley, and incredible human beings, let alone incredible people when it comes to sales and human psychology and recruiting. But I take so much from outside the industry. And I think one thing that I've always thought with that and everything you've said, I'm 100% on board with as well, is that worst case scenario, I'm very blessed to have an incredible wife, an incredible 3 and 7-year-old. Worst case scenario, I knock on that door or I call that agent or I send a message. I'm still going to go home. I hope I still get to go home to them. It doesn't change anything. And if you have that big visionary, big picture idea, like when you're on an aeroplane, right? You look down, everything is really, really small. Yet when we're down here, we're all pretty big. And I think just that mentality, if you are like the go for the notebook, you know, all that basic
Yeah.
kind of sales psychology is massive. And it's so true, isn't it?
It is. It really is. Tell me a little bit about, well, I'm going to throw a couple things at you that I have felt with international, and I've had several Zoom, conversations with global and connecting people. Thought I was close to being the one to open up France, but it didn't happen yet. It's going to. And Japan, I'm talking to a few people, but I know Japan has been a little more challenging for EXP over there, just due to some of their laws. So as far as I extend is Mexico at this point, but I will say that even with Mexico, one of the things, I dug in and I learned kind of what our structure looks like there. It's not hard to do the research. We have a great global support staff that is right there in EXP World to help us. I have never found anyone to be unreachable in global. I mean, even Michael himself answers text messages, emails, so we can get our questions answered. But the language barriers has always been, and again, this is breaking past the barrier of, well, I can't do that. I don't speak French, or I can't do that. I don't speak Spanish. Tell me a little bit about some things that you've done or encountered with that, to overcome it.
So I'm going to ask you the same question afterwards, because I think it's going to be really important to people on this call to learn about actually, let me do that first, if I may. Your expansion in Mexico, right? Because again, you have been in the industry, you sell to a high level, you also have grown to a high level too, but you haven't had that international experience. So what's been your experience internationally of the process of how you grew your team to Mexico?
So I think number one of the things you said was New Orleans, right? It going physically to the bigger events that EXP does, whether it be a Brent Gove event or whether it be an EXP event. I have really, made it a priority at least once a year to go to one of those. At those, I think it breaks down some of those barriers as you're talking to others, as you're hearing presentations from people like Michael, like, hey, I'm right here. I'm ready to help. Let me know what you need, As far as Mexico for me, so at one of those, it really opened my eyes. We had just begun talking about Mexico and the expansion there. And an agent, actually, Jonathan Stone, who's on this call, Kent Brenneman, Jonathan, had gone to college, I believe it was, yes, with a gentleman in Mexico and said, hey, Kent calls me up one day and he goes, a buddy of mine saw a post that I did on Facebook, and Kent is my level 1. I met Kent who's in Kentucky. I'm here in Charleston, South Carolina. I did a post on Facebook from a convention in Florida. Like you, I could not afford to go to the first convention. I had been through a divorce recently and my life was just kind of back and reestablishing myself back in Charleston. So I was like, Shelley Johnson said, you're going. And down there, I did the goofiest little video on the beach, like, I'm so excited about this company. And, after 23 years in the business, I finally found, my home. And someone in my local Starbucks walked up to me a few weeks later and said, you don't know me. We're friends on Facebook. Our daughters were in marching band together. Wow. And I have a friend I think you need to talk to. And he opened up the door right then for us to get on a call with Kent Brenneman in Kentucky, who owned his own brokerage. Kent subsequently rolled his brokerage in. Then he calls me about his buddy in Tulum, and he didn't even have a real estate license, which you don't have to have. So I was learning through that whole process. I was fortunate that he spoke English and was not a Mexico native. But as we ran into him trying to expand, you know, we had to get creative with getting an interpreter on some of our calls and things like that. So I could have done so much more and will still do so much more with it. Very, and it's a matter of where you put your focus. And that's one thing that I'm focusing on this year.
But you did it. And that's the thing. You did it and you figured it out. And you know, so one side note, every time I'm always speaking with an agent, I'm always curious about this story. So when I talk about like connections, is so important. You right there, like, so my wife's from Kentucky. She's from the Bardstown, capital of the world. It was just in Kentucky. It was my first ever expansion. So I already know several things about you. If you were not with EXP, that EXP would benefit the model and how I would approach that. So just kind of as a side note. Thank you for sharing your story on that, by the way. I probably speak even less languages than you. Here in America, sometimes they question if I'm understandable too. So ironically enough, although many non-English speaking countries, everybody that I have personally brought in has been enough fluency in English strategically. Now, there are others. Prime example, we talk about France. It's a number one, and have a look on that 2023 global no, a leadership board, I call it a league table, but whatever you want to call it. The number one team by volume in France is part of my organization, and their volume by number one to number two is almost double. They're in the French Riviera, some of the most incredible homes, but the head of it is English, which helps. Again, point of connection. And this is a level 2, or with the international level 3, I should say. But everybody's spoken English, but it's been very specific. Now I get people reaching out to me who don't, which makes it interesting. But there is Google Translate, there is AI. I'm pretty cheap. I don't spend much in terms of technology to help or support my business per se outside of the tools we already have. There are some I do use. There's a Revoice That app, and there's just different ways of connecting with people through AI in different languages. But honestly and ignorantly, I thankfully have not found that issue. And then when you do expand in a certain country, I look at Poland, for example. I don't speak and never probably will speak a lick of Polish. People who are there, you know, we speak about it before. I know Craig and Shelley have spoken about it too. Finding your generals and help them grow. And I think from a language barrier perspective, that's the key. If you can find someone who meets your question number one, I always ask people is, who is your avatar? What does the agent look like? Not physically or whatever, but what does that avatar of an agent look like of who you want to expand? If it's a geographical thing, well, great. Please make sure you can communicate with them to communicate the model, leverage the country leader in that three-way call as well, just going down the weeds in the process. But if you can empower that particular agent, culturally, it's always difficult anyway. I think I hate to say it, but having an English accent, having an English experience certainly opened up the door and the gateway in the UK. Whereas, and you can publicly look at Keller Williams and other US-based companies that are not succeeding, certainly by comparison there. So I've been very lucky, I guess, a bit like you in terms of I haven't needed a translator. I have that stuff now, but I just empower my local general if I feel they're there, and try and I don't like using the word stacking. I know it's an internal call, but I really try and leverage them to grow their organization of how I can help them. And we can do it from an English and American perspective, but hey, you know the culture, so you can relate, you can open up the doors. Let's help you from the language perspective and move from there, if that makes sense.
Right, exactly. And on that note, are there any, so let me run a scenario by you. Let's do a little role play. So many people that I know I connect with, just as far as being a top producer, even in the US, they want something just sent to them. Just send me a presentation, send me this. Of course, we use Brent Gove's video a lot. A lot of us have our own videos as well. And, you know, if we don't have something in their language, then let's role play that a little bit. So we connect through maybe your level 1, right? Okay, let's say Adam. And Adam sends a message, you know, and just says, or, you know, hey, Barry, or they send a message directly to you. And I just say, I would like more information. Can you send me something in French? Then how would you handle that?
No. And I mean, I'll be honest, because we have it now, just as a sudden, if you guys went, and I think you mentioned this before, being researched and knowledgeable of a country and how things are done there is key. So before you just randomly blanket message India, please do your research. And part of the research, yes, thank you. If you have a look on the EXP workplace, EXP International Conversations or something like that, it's a workplace group everyone has access to. On there, you will find a global FAQ. On that, we'll have a link to every single country model, the PDF, which are all very similar, but obviously different in languages and stuff, both native language and in English. And you can even find some explainer videos on there. So if you want resources, first of all, go there. Not many people know it, but again, not many people do the international factor. Number two, again, Meg, you're a much better real estate agent than me. I see it. I want this opportunity, and I think we need to get back to basics. I know it's overused now, but I think we need to see it as more exclusive. Yeah, I absolutely can send something to you, but I want to know that this opportunity, you're a right fit for the opportunity. And I know, if we have someone put their hand up and say, hey, listen, I want to be recruited. Can you maybe recruit me? Naturally, we get excited. Let's jump on it. Oh, I'll put my hand up. Sorry about that. I don't know how that happened. But I would get back to basics and see it as more of an opportunity that's exclusive, that we don't want to just be sharing with everybody. If you're a listing agent, again, I think the psychology remains the same. I think we should take a step back, and absolutely I have the resources, but I'd rather have a conversation with you to see if you're a good fit and if we fit as a company your needs. I think if we change the narrative of just, hey, I'm with EXP, call me if you want to grow your business, and get more intentional in the relationship and see if it's more of a fit. What I found, exclusivity sells more. If someone calls me for a listing agent's in 30 minutes and I say, I can't do it, but I'll be there at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning, they actually want you more. It's just the human psychology of being more exclusive, more intentional. So I would go along that methodology of no, to be honest with you, no, I'm not going to. I want to learn more. If they say no, that's fine. You can make the discernment of whether you want to just send them something willy-nilly. But again, that resource list will give you that answer. I just do things a little different now at this phase.
And I love that you mentioned the global FAQ. And that is something that I had written down. It does take, in the US, we know the model. Those of us that are interested in agent attraction or have been with the company and have done our research, obviously, and our decision to join, know enough to be dangerous, at least. In presenting, I'm like you too. Sometimes I just go and don't necessarily look at all the rules. So sometimes that makes a good salesperson. But we know enough to be dangerous when it comes to approaching someone or connecting with someone in another country. There is a bit of research to do. The nice thing now that we didn't have a few years ago, as you know as well, is the global support team and the office where you can actually go in EXP world and say, help, I think I know someone that might be interested in France. Where can I find this? One thing I did notice before we got on the Zoom this morning, and I'll reach out and let someone know, it'd be nice to have that global FAQ. At least it's not easily discoverable on EXP Enterprise. I went in there to like the Explore guide and just typed in global, and nothing is really pulling up.
I think that's a really good point. I think, the company, and one thing I love about the company, I was going to say before, is transparency. You say about anyone's available in workplace chat. I sent Glenn a message 2 days ago, and I don't know how quickly he gets back to me. And like I said, Michael, any of the country leaders will be more than willing to send you their calendar to schedule for that call. But I think with transparency comes feedback. So if you put that, or if you sent a message to Megan or Michael, don't be surprised if that change is implemented quickly. That's one thing I personally love about this company.
They're wonderful. Yeah, they're absolutely wonderful. Yeah, and definitely. So Blythe, I see your question. Can we link that document? You can absolutely go to Workplace, and it's international conversations, right? I believe that's it. It's either global or international conversations, and just search in the main search bar on Workplace, and you will learn so much. With I think it's tagged, pinned at the top there with your global facts. And then you can just download it to your computer, which would be easier than us trying to get it to you on here. But yeah, it is amazing, the support and the connections that we have. So yeah, how does it work there as far as learning about different things? I know I've reached out to Michael directly. That was when we really first started the international expansion, but he has an amazing team. I've talked to Megan several times. I've talked to, a lot of people on the global support staff. So one thing I would say, and I'm sure you say to other people in your organization, is if you think you have a connection, or if you have even a family connection in a certain region of, Europe or wherever that may be, reach out to your sponsor or reach above. Just like we've talked about in the other sessions, you're not on an island, right? You have people that can support you, and And Barry, you had people above you that you could reach out to, and you reached out to Jason and you got to know him and asked questions. And, like you said, everyone is so available and ready to help. So we can definitely help. Oh, good. Thank you, Mary Ruth. You had time to do that.
So
So
it's
there's the
not. If
link.
you have a look, I'm just going by the comment. By the way, no, Meg, I completely agree with you. I was looking at the comment here. So no, the group itself, I'm going from memory, but it will be called something like International Conversations. Those are the two front words with EXP. If you
Yes.
type in those words, it will come up there and you'll find it piece of cake. And then things for me have evolved. So one piece of super good friend of mine, and I'm always going to throw her name out there because she's an incredible human being. Elizabeth Riley. I know everybody will know
Yes.
her in this world.
Love her.
Exactly. And that's always a reaction because it should be. Incredible person. One thing that she said at the regional rally here in Charlotte, North Carolina, what, a week or 2 weeks ago? And this is really important, specifically for this conversation, specifically for really anything, because we're in a social media phase of comparing ourselves and our success to everybody else. Don't compare, specifically globally, don't compare my chapter like 20 with your chapter 1.
Right.
Don't let that stop you from doing what you're doing, because exactly like you were just saying, Meg, you don't know who knows somebody, and that's the beauty of this model. It will blow your mind. The whole concept of, I don't know if I ever really knew the word cascading before, but it will blow your mind where things will go, and you just never know. I was on a call, Jesse did a call with the EXP UK guys yesterday. I just snuck in the background. This guy is an incredible person as well. Check out Jesse Zagorski. I can't
Yes. Yes.
right. And he has, what was he telling me? I'm sure he has 1,700 agents. His front line is about 30. So, it just goes to show you never know who knows somebody. So don't
Right.
let the intimidation stop you.
Right. One of the things that just clicked with me too is you get the objection, I'm sure, in newer markets, which I experienced here in the US 7 years ago. No one had heard of us. So now it's nicer in some ways, but honestly, in some ways, I liked it when we were the new fish in the ocean, right? I mean, we were the first, the newest born, because it piqued interest a little more. I think that's one of the beautiful things about the opportunity still internationally, in my opinion. But I might be weird. I like being the one that's different and the trendsetter and being able to say you have to hear about this. Like it's a pretty amazing opportunity.
Yeah.
Um, how do you handle? Let's role play a little bit about how is that going to work here? Our system is different. We don't even have licensed agents. I know I've run into that in several places where it's
Yeah.
like we don't even get licenses, and then you're going, oh, well, how does this work? Or just the general response, I think, of anyone that is being presented with something new and different is that's not going to work here.
And they may well be right. You know what? And that's okay. So pros and cons. Again, you got me covered by probably round about a little over a year, like you're saying. And I
Right.
think the pro with that is to really see who those early pioneers are, early adopters. I was saying this in an interview yesterday. I'll say it here publicly. When we launched into the UK, and Adam was thankfully enough, I guess, agent number one, if you're going to go agent wise.
Right.
And as your sponsor, I was thankful for it. It took 18 months for the My EXP revenue share dashboard to come into play. So you talk about being an early adopter. When the My
Wow.
EXP dashboard came into play, international revenue started coming into play. There was no back pay. So 18 months, and it's not a complaint, it's just a mere fact. 18 months until I received one single penny from all of that endeavor. So if you ever want to check patience and see if you really want to do something, be a good volunteer
Right.
for 18 months. But I think with the early adopter, with the proof of concept, there's pros and cons. I'm with you completely. I think being an early adopter, I can say that now, like 4 years on, is I'm very thankful for. But I think it's a couple of things. I think the mistake probably that many people will make is comparing, and again, we've got to get the cultural differences right. So I think that's a blessing and a curse of being what am I called, an alien
Yeah.
in America, because I can understand the differences of sort from my ignorant experience, is that an American company has big opportunities internationally, and people love the American dream, right? Which
Right.
is true, clearly. But again, being too American in a Poland or a Spain or an Italy is to our negative as well. So I feel It's really going back to your previous question, actually, going back to, am I just going to send something over blanket? No, because I want to learn as much about them as an individual, because a new opportunity with a new company may or may not work. I think of some prime examples of people I was over the moon about, and they're not here with us now because it didn't work. And maybe that's on me, maybe that's on them, maybe it's on a combination. But I think if you set the right expectation in the front end and don't just send people the slide deck, which you can do
Right.
to anyone from any country, if you set that expectation and then you share your experience of how things are as well from your experience, and you bring them into the country leader, I think if you follow, and this is what we don't, again, I'm speaking to myself here, getting better now, I don't leverage my organization above me at all, and I probably should. But if we follow the process more so, I think that issue of, hey, it's not going to work here, comes into play in the initial conversation. Well, who are you?
Right.
What are you looking for? Does it fit your needs? If not, that's okay. Maybe they'll be more honest with themselves, or maybe because you feel like they're not wanting it more, they'll actually get more excited because they are wanted more. So I think
Right.
following that process comes into play. And just be very transparent. If you set the right expectation in anything in life up front, the
Yeah.
result is going to come from it more. So I think a combination of those two, by learning more about them as an agent, what they're looking for, what they need, and we see, like, I know we don't have public access to it, but if you look at everything outside of North America, the UK's success is like here, Australia's is probably here, and
Right.
the others are probably here. So I think just follow the process, ask the right questions as we do now as real estate agents, ask the right
Yes.
questions, and that will become more apparent. And then if it's a specific objection, you just meet it head on. I think if we do that, you figure out who is the right person for that, and vice
Right.
versa.
So a few questions. Every time you say something, it makes me
No,
think
please,
of
I'm
more.
sorry, I
We
go
decided
fast.
we were going to wing this, by the way, you guys, and I love this. This is my kind of thing. Um, Video. So let me back up. One of the things that you keep mentioning, which I love, is that you take the time to look at the agent, how they market themselves, and it doesn't take a lot of time with social media. With all of these methods that we have, I always say, be a stalker, like stalk them, know what's going on in their life, know when you can, reach out if it's someone that you connected with a while back. What's something that they've posted that you can reconnect over, right? Send them a private message. But it sounds like you really do a great job of researching the agent, how they brand themselves. Jennifer Pratt is on here. She's a huge brander and does an amazing job at branding. But I do think it tells you a lot about a person.
Yeah.
So if you looked at Jennifer's Facebook or Jennifer's LinkedIn or Jennifer's Instagram, you can tell by her picture that's posted right here. She's the real estate fairy godmother. She makes a killing being the real estate fairy godmother. It's plastered all over her truck. Like, you can't go anywhere in Charleston without knowing Jennifer Pratt. But if you were to call her and be super straightforward, you need to see this opportunity, da 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 da, no fuzzy, warm personality bonding feeling, she's probably not going to respond very well, right? And I know her as a personal friend. So I love that you do that. Are you solely using LinkedIn? Have you expanded to other things? And do you incorporate any videos to people in your connecting?
Can I ask, when you say incorporating videos, how do you mean exactly?
A personal video message?
That's how I grew in Kentucky. First of all, 5 years ago, whenever I figured out what revenue share was, I sent a video message it was on LinkedIn Messenger. Yeah. And it's like, oh, I've never seen that before. Now I know it's 2024, a different world. Yeah, combination. I'm sorry, I'm a little off track. What was the original question as
Just
well?
it was kind of three-part, but researching people, approaching them the way you think they would best respond to, and what mediums are you using, and do you incorporate video? So you can take that anywhere you want.
Thank you. And the platform as well. So I am very LinkedIn heavy, specifically internationally. However, and I even look at the last month, I feel like I'm too old for Instagram, but I've got a phenomenal agent who's just come to join through Instagram and Facebook.
Great.
A phenomenal, well, I don't know if they're on board with this yet. So fingers crossed, hopefully, phenomenal team in Spain who's coming directly to join and we got connected through Facebook. So it is a combination. I don't like social media, and that's okay, but I do want to say that publicly. I only solely use it for working purposes. So I'm very, and I know we can all go down rabbit holes and scrolling and all of that. So I try to be very intentional with the message. And now, because I'm not frontline actively selling so much, I can be more specific in my target, and I know my audience and the messaging that comes with that. Video is how I built my business. And yes, I feel that I said a ton of voice notes. I blame Jason Guessing, actually. So when we launched in the UK, me, Adam, Olivia, who's the first admin lady, and Jason were all driving around in Adam's car all across for the road shows as we were launching. He would send voice notes all the time, just to staff members and stuff. So I send now a ton. But yeah, it's a combination. Because it is the research on the front end,
Yes,
my strongest point is probably actually follow-up. I'm not a very systematic person, so it's ironic saying that. We all need to be better, and we will be in time. But it is knowing your strengths. So yeah, very much so. I used to send specific video messages for anniversaries and stuff like that. And now I've got out of that habit. I probably need to get back into it more. But for me, it's the messenger platform. You know, what you see publicly on my Facebook or LinkedIn or Instagram,
right.
very underwhelming. The messages behind the scenes, because I spend my time in a messenger platform, that's where the real results have come. So one thing I will say though, because whenever I say, oh, LinkedIn is the way to go globally, it's not. It's just an avenue that I was engaged in more than the other ones. If you have Facebook and you have more of an audience on there, use what you already have. You know, I know we're
Right.
real estate agents, we always want to do everything and pay all the money for everything. But when you're on a platform, double down on it, in my ignorant opinion, as opposed to start a new one. Use what you have, embrace, embellish your audience, and ideally incorporate YouTube into that too, because then you have a place where you can host it. Hey, if you want to speak about
Right.
Spanish model or something, it's just kind of having that, like you're saying about Jennifer, like having that holistic platform, because you are your own walking brand, you are your own walking billboard. So if you can have whatever social media platform you have and keep it consistent in branding and leverage YouTube and video,
Right.
I think you're a winner.
Excellent. I have a question for you. So it's the beginning of the second quarter, 2024. How is Barry Pulver leveraging what you've already built throughout the rest of this year to attract more?
It's always
Are you
no, please
posting?
carry on.
Are you?
Um, it's the fine balance. I have spent specifically, I guess the 18-month example was a good one of everything in the UK, having a general and helping them. And there's always the fine balance between doing for you directly and the cascading factor.
Right.
So for me, it's, you know what, it's really actually diving internal and helping the cascading, easy for me to say, factor come into play more. You know, I probably need to do more on a direct approach in recruiting, but because I'm very blessed somehow to have people coming to me at this point, I don't think that's a focus. It's getting more intentional with my current guys and girls. If you have an organization of 7, if you have an organization of 3,000, what can you do to help your current people succeed? You know, I love this, and I'm not going to get into it now. I think the buyer agency thing changing here in America is not a bad thing. It's my global approach. But things are changing, and because we don't know quite what that's going to look like, people are looking for security and people are looking for support. I'm spending more time doing that. I finally got into a routine habit now. Now, I just send this directly to my level ones, but you could easily do it to your whole organization through KV Core, sending a monthly internal newsletter. I did it yesterday, a day early, because actually last month I was 7 days late, but it's just to offer value, offer them my calendar, right? We all
Yeah.
have Calendly or whatever access we have. I'm diving internally to seeing what my guys and girls need. Prime example of that top volume list from last year. So the top 10 volume globally was part of my organization. 39 of the top 50 were part of my organization. The top team leader in the world was. I spent an hour, a nice cup of coffee, sent them all a voice note saying, hey, you know, massive congratulations. Most of them know who I am, some don't. So I was just looking to offer that hand and support. And I think, honestly, now even people outside of EXP looking in, with buyer agency changing, with, you know, just the lay of the whole general industry changing, people are looking, in my ignorant opinion, and I want to ask you the exact same question after, Meg, people are looking to know that they're genuinely cared about. And I don't
Yes,
mean just because, hey, you know, come join me, you sell a home, I help you, I get paid for it. No, authenticity is what sells in real estate. And I believe authenticity is what sells in growth and recruiting as well.
right.
So I'm really now, and again, my organization isn't massive, it's 630 something, but I'm diving internal to seeing what I just as one human being can do to help, you know, my leaders help their people and just help everybody overall. What about you, Meg? How do you feel? The same question for you.
You know, last year was a really interesting year for me, I would say, as far as when I first came into EXP, I was solely focused on sales and always had, you know, had either been that or I had been a managing broker for a couple, you know, 100 and something agents at the time. So did and decided to go out of leadership back into sales to allow myself more time freedom because I've been in this way longer than you have because I'm old. But I I you know, I had shifted my mindset to say, okay, I'm just going to rebuild my sales career, you know, let people know I'm back in this. And then when EXP was presented to me, it shifted me back to, man, I really do miss supporting others and helping them in their growth. But it was the management piece of it that I just had burned me out, right? The liability, the meetings, the management, people having their thumb on you. And I don't really thrive well in that environment. So I loved that piece of it. And I dove in head first for those first few years of support, and feeling like that fills my bucket, right? Helping others. But then, like you said, it does become a balance because then you stop and go, well, I do have to continue growing my level ones. You know, Jonathan Stone is in this position right now. And this guy, by the way, Barry, you're going to hear a lot more about him, everybody on this call. But Jonathan is in Kentucky, you know, has been in real estate. Is it 5 years, Jonathan, now?
The end of 2017, so 2018.
Yeah. So 6, yeah. So, but you know, just full of energy, decided to jump into this full time. Has done an amazing job sales wise, but brought on a large team in Kentucky recently, and has really been focusing a lot more on agent attraction. And so, after the first session of this series, I get this text from Jonathan. He goes, "Can we get on a call?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And he goes, "I'm just now realizing I'm not really going to benefit from all these people that the team leader brought on." It's like ding, ding, ding. And it's funny until you're in the situation. He's like, "Meg, I need a few more level ones, don't I?" I'm like, "Yes, you do. And you know, we can help you get there." So he has jumped right in, implemented his vision board, and has already been working on all of that diligently. So he's, you know, we're going to see a lot from Jonathan. But it's one of those situations where no matter what level your organization is, you do have to also remember, just like in sales, we can constantly just nurture our past clients. But if we're never looking for new ones, eventually that pipeline, you know, it
You
is
know,
not going to be
and if I can add
enough.
to that as well, I think honestly, if I was to give any piece of advice ignorantly, because you didn't ask for it, but of how to focus on the growth or recruiting or whatever you want to call it, is look at it more like you do your sales business. You know, I always ask people, especially here locally, and I've started to grow quite a lot in town. You know, I have a here in Davidson, North Carolina, every Monday meeting, just a regular, you know, coffee shop. We get together, and I think that proof of concept, ironic, it's actually the wrong way around. You should have the proof of concept like you do, make locally, and then go out, but whatever works. But anyway, I say to people, if you want to have 20 listings for the rest of the year, why are you working with buyers? And I think it's the same thing. Figure out who you are, what you want your organization, what you want your avatar to look like, and go with it. Again, if you're going on a listing presentation, you're going to do the research up front. Same with figuring out the avatar, who you want and what they are, and a bit about them. You know, so just see it the same way. I think we overcomplicate it because we're salespeople and we're looking to sell the general public. Arguably, from a psychological perspective, it's easier
Right.
to sell a salesperson than it is the general public. So I think if you actually take a step back for a moment and look at what you want your revenue share organization to look like, the culture, the numbers, whatever demographic you want to kind of figure that out by, see it more as your sales business. And I think when you do that, you'll actually have more
Oh,
success. That makes
totally. And
sense?
the one thing that we talked about, I think it was session 1, and I always try to bring it a full circle is we are salespeople in this industry. We know how to connect with buyers and sellers. We know how to take that, connect with that waitress that walks over and does such a phenomenal job and make conversation and ask the right questions to find out, hey, do you own a home? Do you do this? Have you ever thought about real estate? You would be great in real estate. And those kinds of things. This is no different. It's learning about people. It's being able to ask just a few questions, to say, hey, tell me about your business. What are the struggles that you have felt in the last year that you'd like to change this year? Or what things are you most proud of in the last year? You're digging, you're asking, open-ended questions, just like we were all taught to do in sales. So it's not rocket science. I think sometimes it's the mental block, right, that some people will get into going, well, I don't know enough about EXP to go talk to somebody, friends about it. You have a support team, right? And
leverage it, and don't use. Who was I having this conversation with? Randomly at a coffee shop this morning. One of my level, so on that top 50 list, I think she's probably a level 5 with the international buffer, maybe. She was just very thankful that I sent her a voice note of congratulations. Like, hey, can I have a call with you? So we were speaking. That's a level 5 I've never met. We obviously know of each other.
Right.
And I'm saying leverage what you have and don't do it alone. I do think it is very important in research to know the model by which you want and feel something is a good fit for the individual. However, leverage the process. I'll throw AJ Miner under the bus. He kind of put this into implementation 8 years ago. 3-way, and John Mikesh does a great job with it now too, and Lars and all these guys, 3-way calls with your sponsor or your sponsor or someone who just genuinely wants to help you, the country leader. Leverage that so then you get out of your own way of not feeling you need to be the expert in the model, because you're not going to be, because you're not part of the model anyway. You know what I mean? So have enough research and understanding to give yourself the competence and confidence, but please don't do it alone. Just the psychology of things, it's going to be much easier if you bring someone else in, show the level of care you have for that individual, both of them. It's going to be much easier as well. So I just wanted to throw that on top.
Yes, and we've spent quite a bit of time talking about 3-ways. And so I knew you were going to be a great example of how well that works. And just the fact that they're less likely to cancel, it makes them feel important. It brings a whole new level. I always say we're their peers. We need to bring in someone that's more than their peer. Peers don't sell peers. It's the leaders that sell your peers. Another thing that I just wrote down that clicked with me, because I'm brainstorming as we're talking, which I love. So thank you for allowing me to do that. Your international connections, I just wrote down, your international connections are likely local, right? So we go to realtor events. We target, so many people that I know in my organization, and I hear from Shelley and Brent and people like AJ and even Elizabeth. Most people think local market, right? That's what we know. That's what we've sold in. Those are the agents we connect with. Well, if you're connecting with local agents, maybe connect with local agents that have a different ethnicity, and ask them questions. Hey, where are you from? Do you still have family there? Do you have connections there? And they're going to go, why are you asking me all this? Well, it's really interesting. We've expanded globally to, what are we at, 26 countries?
Yeah, they say 24 technically.
Okay, 24 countries, and to be honest, obviously you'd want to know maybe kind of where they are, make sure that we're there. But I will say this too, and I want you to talk to this, but I just wrote that down. Your international connections are often local. When you're at these realtor events or when you're connecting with people that you've done deals with, maybe they have family that is international, or maybe they're from another country and would have natural connections, and you pique their interest by saying, hey, you could grow global with this. So something I just clicked with me. Oh shoot, now I lost my thought, Barry. I got so excited about that one thing. Hold on, got my mind going now. We were just discussing connections, 3-ways. Remember, Jonathan, you had your hand up. Is there a question that you have? And let's open it up these last 10 minutes here for Barry.
Yes, Barry, I love your idea of finding avatars and finding your generals. And like Meg Meg uses the term a lot of time, a whale, right? So what are maybe 3 green flags and 3 red flags for those avatars that you're looking for? Who is it that you got your eye on and why?
I guess it probably comes back to now, like what I was saying with Elizabeth, right? Don't compare chapter 20 to someone's chapter 1. But I think the general gist of it is at this point, I'm looking for someone with influence, someone with a story, and someone looking to go to the next level. Now everyone's looking to go to the next level, but you know what I mean. A red flag internationally is people who come back and are looking for a salary, which is not very uncommon in Dubai. And again, there's visa implementations and things that come into it. But I think for me, I am open. I can't say with everybody, but I almost want to dive into that when I get in front of them. So from the research perspective, it could be difficult. I can look at titles, I can look at locations. That's kind of my number one. But number two is just to learn about them, how set in their ways they are. And in some countries, things are so very different. So just figuring out who is kind of looking for, who's open to evolving, who's open to growing, and who is looking to do so without kind of the tainted view of, well, this is how things are done, this is how things have always been. The red flag, if people are looking for salaries, or basically just a general, is not a very good answer. I go on gut or intuition a lot too, which has taught me pretty right. So that's kind of part of the red flag factor. But from hearing what you're doing, I would ask you, and it could just be one of each. What are you finding? What are your kind of go-tos, green flag and opposite in the red?
So the team that I brought on, she and I were both at the same brokerage where we had non-competes, which the news just came out that everybody, I hope you have read, non-competes are done. Real estate is going to have no more non-competes, so we can recruit or attract. So I had reached out to her, complimented her on a few listings that she had just taken. Honestly, just BSing with her. I had no idea that she was unhappy. I was just telling her, hey, I'm so proud of you. Look how far we've come. We aren't even part of that crap anymore. And she said, well, I'd love for you to come over to KW so we can share each other's stuff. And I said, funny you should ask. I'd rather you come to EXP so I can share all your stuff. And she said, I've been a little PO'd with my broker lately, and if I was to go anywhere, it would be EXP. What information can you send me? So I immediately got on the phone with Meg and I said, Meg, what do we do? And she said, set up a call.
You know what? And to go into that, because you can't control their time and you didn't know how it was, but you weren't afraid to be very blunt and honest, and you already had that prior relationship with them, it opens the door.
And so I guess that's where my head has been, is people that I know and that I can relate to. But I've got this new list of 50 people that I've been working on, and I've got maybe 10 of them that I know loosely or have some sort of connection with. So my brother moved from Nashville, Tennessee to Denver, Colorado. Both of his agents are on my list. I've got a girl up in just outside of where your wife is from, and she's a doll. I love her so much. And she's a very, very good friend of mine through Facebook and Instagram. We share each other's stuff all the time. So she's on there. So people like that I have some sort of connection to, that I can, when I was serving and bartending, if you came in with any kind of sports hat on, I could talk to you. If you came in with any kind of theater shirt on, Phantom of the Opera, I could talk to you. Like, I'm well versed enough in culture to where I can just talk to you. And so I look for those kinds of signals of things that, if I can just build rapport and chat with you, this is going to make everything so much easier for both of ourselves.
That's great. That's the psychology of it, because you're putting yourself out there. Again, you don't know. We always make preconceived notions from the other person we're speaking with. Remove that barrier, have the conversation, build a relationship, and it's exactly where it's going to lead you. I say keep it going, because you're exactly going to get where you want to go.
Perfect.
Yes. One thing that just clicked with me, as we're talking about reaching out and expanding. And I think we are all creatures of habit. Like I said, we've been in local sales, we've been in local offices all these years. Our mindset is local real estate. I know that neighborhood. I know this agent. I was helping my daughter yesterday, possibly looking at coming to the Charlotte area, Barry. I have a son up there already. And so we redid her resume, spiced it up a bit, and we went on Indeed. And just now, when we were talking about, I wrote down the friends and family text, right, guys? Those of you on the call, we talked about sending out that friends and family text. You know, you could totally twist that friends and family text also into, do you know any realtors globally? I am looking to expand my referral network, which we always are. And I would love to connect with them, right? So friends and family are definitely a great resource for that, to expanding it. But I thought about, just clicked with me, Indeed. We're on there, and every major hospital network, right, which is where she works, had all of their jobs posted on Indeed. What if the Carolina Medical Center in Charlotte just said, we're not going to post anywhere, we're not going to reach out past our local market, we're going to find all the nurses that we possibly can in Charlotte. That's those of us that really want to grow and expand and create a future for ourselves. Make sure you're posting on Indeed, right? Make sure you are reaching out. And that's just
But you know what? It amplifies exactly what we were talking about before. See this opportunity as the same as your sales business. You do the same thing. It's just an additional part of the conversation.
Right. But, you know, make sure that you are allowing your connections to go past your local market. And Shelley always talks about it as starting legs, right? Adding more security and legs to your organization, or foundational peers. You've got your local foundational peer, and then you expand here. That's another one that creates stability when the storms come along. But yeah, so no, it clicked with me that the friends and family, guys, could definitely be a great way to say, hey, do you have any connections or friends that are maybe from another part of the world that I could connect with to expand my referral relationships and possibly my team globally? So that could be a good opportunity as well. Barry, you are awesome. Guys, I want to open it up to any more questions. Or is there anything, Barry, that I haven't touched on, that you know so much more about this than I do, that you'd like to expand
Thank
on?
you. But as for my beginning, sometimes ignorance is bliss. If I didn't have the ignorance, I probably wouldn't have done it. So the one thing I will say, though, if there aren't any questions, or if you do have any questions going up, you know, it may take me a minute to respond. But workplace chat, like I said, if Glenn Sanford's available, I'm available. Just any questions, any thoughts you have is definitely the best way to reach me. Always happy to help to whatever extent I can.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Anyone else? Mary Ruth, Jennifer, Laura, Blythe. Thank y'all for being on here. We will be posting this on. Oh, go ahead, Jennifer. I just saw that you
I was
unmuted.
just going to say thank you guys so much. And I really think that if you're struggling on where to start with, like, who to talk to, I would definitely go and look up on your MLS all the deals that you've done in, say, the past 5 years, and go down them, and you'll go ding, ding, ding when you found somebody that you really enjoyed working with, that was professional, and you know, somebody that is of quality that you want to work with, you know, as a EXP agent. So like I go through there and I go, oh yeah, I forgot about that girl. She was awesome. And then you can go back and see what they're up to. And as Meg said, start stalking them on social media, and then ask them for coffee or lunch, and just, as you said, build that relationship. But that's a really good place to start if you're struggling on where to start.
Great
Yes,
advice.
particularly for local. Exactly. Barry, thank you again. I appreciate
Thank
your
you.
time, and thank you
so
for being
much.
flexible, guys. We moved this whole series around because I wanted to get Barry on here, and I'm so excited, and we will do this again.
I look forward to it. Listen, keep up the great work, everything you're doing. I appreciate you, and I appreciate the time here. So guys, don't stop yourself and go and do it. And thank you so much.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Barry.
Barry. Have a wonderful day, everybody.
You too.
Thanks
It's
again.
great.
Bye.
Thank you, Meg.
You're welcome, hon. Talk to you soon.
See ya.